July's astrology, it's kind of spicy. It's a little dicey. I was in the midst of talking about the Mars-Uranus conjunction. This is happening in Taurus. So if you have any placements in Taurus, I am not worried for you, but I'm excited, maybe. If you're a fixed sign rising, so you're Leo rising, Scorpio rising, Taurus rising, Aquarius rising, July's astrology, I think, affects you the most because we're having a lot of transits happening in Leo, in Taurus, and as a result, they're also opposing or in some ways squaring Pluto and Aquarius. So Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, July is really, really impactful for you. When Mercury enters Leo on July 2nd, it immediately opposes Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto's retrograde. Something from the past could come up. It might be an opportunity for you to have a somewhat impassioned conversation about things that you've been stuffing under the rug, so to speak, things that maybe you haven't been wanting to talk about, things that are related to power struggles. This happens again when Venus enters Leo on July 11th. Venus then goes on to oppose retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. And it's about relationships. It's about the stuff nobody wants to talk about. It's about how you are giving over your power or how somebody else is giving over their power to you. There's interesting power dynamics about the shadow stuff in relationships, maybe something taboo, maybe money could be on the table because Venus is the planet of finances as well as relationships. Pluto's also the planet of hidden wealth. So I wouldn't be surprised if around July 11th, maybe July 12th, there's some sort of conversation about finances. We can even see this on the world stage. But if you're a Leo rising, if you're an Aquarius rising, you really want to pay attention to those dates. That's July 2nd and July 11th, because that's when Mercury and Venus will oppose Pluto and Aquarius. July 15th is really important for fixed signs all across the board, but especially if you have a fixed sign placement at or near 23 degrees, because we're seeing a conjunction between Mars and Uranus in Taurus, and those signs are really going to feel the effects of this because Mars and Uranus bring a restless energy when they conjoin in a sign, meaning they're like sort of bumping up against each other in the same sign, Taurus. Taurus doesn't really like to be pushed. Taurus doesn't like to get angry, but Taurus will get angry if it's pushed. And Uranus is kind of like this planet that's like, haha, I want to poke at you. I want to cause a stir. I want to make things, shake things up because maybe it feels stifling or it feels stagnant. So, that's something to think about in these first 2 weeks of July. Where are you feeling stagnant? What part of your chart is Taurus ruling? Because that's kind of the way, or that's where you're going to see this conjunction playing out. But you're also going to feel some of that restless need, and like you want to see something explode. You want to see your stats go up, or you want to get that promotion. And it's a day that I could see some ego stuff playing out, and you kind of want to avoid letting your temper get in the way. If you joined me before, just like 3 minutes ago, somehow I got sort of hijacked by these two interesting fellas that I didn't know how to get out of it. So I had to exit out of that and go live again. So if that was the case, hey, cool. But what else? Does anybody have questions with or about July's astrology? What's going on? If you want to drop your rising sign in the comments, we can do that. And I can answer any questions. But I'm kind of just doing this to give you an overview of July's astrology because it's spicy. It's a little dicey. Mercury enters its shadow phase on July 16th. That's right after that Mars-Uranus conjunction that I was talking about. And, it's going to give us a preview of the shakeups, the maybe potential, head facepalm moments that come our way in August with Mercury retrograde. because Mercury's going to retrograde through Virgo and through Leo in August, and it's entering that shadow phase July 16th in Leo. So if you're a Leo or you're another fixed sign, you know, pay attention to this month. This month's astrology is so impactful for you. And it's about, for Leo in particular, it's about your messaging. It's about what you're putting out into the world. It's about your voice. It's about your communications, your ideas. That Mars-Uranus conjunction, it's about your career. For Taurus, that's about your personal goals. It's about like shaking things up. And I mean, we don't need to get like too freaked out about the Mercury entering its shadow phase. It's something to note, because it is going to give us like a precursor to what we can expect in August with Mercury retrograde. So it's a time to like double check, you know, things that you're sending out. It's a time to double check travel plans. It's a time to start reviewing, start looking at things that are feeling kind of bumpy and feeling like they're not running the way they should, and get ready for a slowdown, because we start July with Saturn retrograde and then Neptune stations retrograde. Both of these planets are retrograde in Pisces. And so the part of your chart where Pisces is sitting, that's seeing a lot of sort of, I don't want to say delays, but just a slowdown. It's a time to pause. It's a time for reflecting. It's a time for thinking about, okay, what seems sort of foggy and hazy, and how can I clarify this part of my life? What do I need to fix? What do I need to say no to? Sometimes that's a big thing for a lot of us. It's that we just have so many things going on, and it's like everything seems foggy because we keep saying yes to everything. And so maybe July is the month for you to be like, no, I'm good. I don't really want to do those things. I have enough on my plate as is. And if you're a Pisces, if you're a Gemini, if you're a Virgo, if you're a Sagittarius, you're going to be impacted by these Saturn and Neptune retrogrades. Not in a bad way, but you're going to feel it a little bit more, especially if you have your sun or rising sign near 18 degrees, 12 degrees, like between 12 and 18 degrees for Saturn retrograde. And then if you have a mutable sign placement near 29 degrees, you're really going to want to pay attention to Neptune retrograde, because it's going to cross that particular mutable sign placement. So it might oppose it if you're a Virgo, it might square it if you're a Gemini or Sagittarius, or it might conjoin it if you're a Pisces. All of those things mean different things. They depend on your birth chart, but they do signify kind of like a fog lifting in a different way. What you're going to work on, again, that depends on your birth chart. I can't answer that question for you. But hello, everybody. If you want to drop your rising sign in the comments and we can talk about kind of what July's astrology means for you, go ahead and do that, because that would be fun. But so we covered Saturn retrograde, we covered Neptune retrograde, Mercury in Leo. Mercury is going to meet up with Uranus later in the month. That's a tense moment. It's a moment of sort of restless, urgent, maybe breaking news for you. You know, it might be like, hey, this is breaking news for me. A desire to break out of something. Anytime we have planets doing something with Uranus, you can expect the unexpected. And you can expect the unexpected in the area of life related to the planet that's interacting with Uranus. So Mercury means something about communication, something about writing, something about messaging, but also something about your everyday, because Mercury rules your everyday life. So there might be like this need to break out of your everyday routine around July 22nd. That's a day after the full moon in Capricorn, because we have another full moon in Capricorn. I mean, there's so much astrology happening in July. I can't even mess with you right here, because it's just like, it's so much. especially for fixed signs. Cardinal signs, I feel like you're getting a bit of a break in July. We have a wonderful Cancer new moon, and that's really good because it has a trine to Saturn, this Cancer new moon. Also, the moon loves being in Cancer. The moon rules Cancer. So there's like a sense of just like, I know how to work with this. I know how to do this. That's what the moon's saying on July 5th. We also are moving towards a sextile between Mercury and Jupiter on that new moon. That's really good for your long-term goals, for articulating the type of abundance you want to bring into your life. Jupiter's the planet of abundance. Jupiter's the planet of like, hey, I'm attracting this into my life. Mercury is the planet of speaking that aloud. So if you are wanting to set intentions for the rest of 2024, like, hey, I'm done with the past. Maybe the past 6 months have just been really, really difficult. I mean, they have been, like, in terms of the world. But for you in your life, then the July 5th Cancer new moon, great day to be like, you know what? I'm done with all that. Let's start over. Let's start fresh. The soil is so good for planting seeds. Capricorn full moon on July 22nd. It's an interesting full moon because it's in the 29th degree. That's one of my favorite degrees to talk about in astrology. It's an anaretic degree, meaning it's like this urgent degree. It's the final degree of this sign. The sun and the moon are opposing Cancer and Capricorn. So if you're a cardinal sign, pay attention to these moons this month and pay attention to your moods and see how you're feeling, what it is that you're wanting to move forward towards, what it is that you feel like you're ready to let go of. Because the Capricorn full moon has that feeling of finality to it. It has this feeling of like, I'm like done with this thing. I'm done with this project. I'm done with this job. I'm done with this person. Not in a bad way, just in a way of like, I actually feel ready to move on. And that's what you have to think about is what are you feeling like you're ready to move on from in order to move forward? It might be a little dreamy. It might be a little delulu on that full moon because retrograde Neptune is sextiling that full moon, which means it's supporting it. So it's somewhat romanticizing the past. I think that's kind of the feel I get from that aspect. It's like, hey, let's get a little nostalgic. Let's look at the tradition. Let's look at this thing that I've done and let's give it some love and some compassion. But it also could cause a little bit of confusion. So it could be this moment or this day where you're like, I don't really know where I am right now and I don't even know where I want to be. And how do you get out of that? I think sometimes you just have to sit with it and be like, all right, I'm going to have kind of a foggy day on this full moon. Full moons are always great days to release, so that's something to think about for July 21st. And before that, or in between that, Mars enters Gemini on July 20th. On that same full moon, Mars makes a trine to Pluto. So with Mars and Gemini, it's like about talking. There's going to be a lot of fervent, somewhat restless energy. Like the best way to think of Mars and Gemini is like when you've had 4 cups of coffee and you're like, I'm going to do things. And you're going over here and you're going over there and you're all over the place. And maybe you're like talking nonstop or you're writing nonstop and you're like, it's that moment that we all have like before finals, if you remember that in college, where you're like, I'm cramming, I'm getting all this information in there and I'm putting stuff out there and I'm submitting those papers. That's going to be that Mars and Gemini feel throughout that second half of July and then into August. When it trines Pluto on July 21st, this is interesting because Mars is the planet of action, of energy, of authority figures, of like war generals and, these sort of powerful, physical people. And Pluto is the power or the planet of power. It's a planet of hidden wealth. It's a planet of all things hidden. It's a planet of taboo. It's a planet of influence. Mars is also the planet of, your ambition, your drive, your motivation. So the 21st is an interesting day because it's a full moon, yeah. So there's something that you're releasing about the past. There's something that's like, I'm done with this. I'm ready to say goodbye. But then with that Mars-Pluto trine, I think it's starting something or continuing a conversation that happened early June when we saw Jupiter trining Pluto. Jupiter had just entered Gemini and it made that trine to Pluto. So there's something about maybe this is the time to reach out to someone that you see as a more influential person, like an authority figure. Maybe it's someone on social media. Maybe it's just having a good conversation with your boss. Overall, it's a good aspect to work with if you want to facilitate a conversation that allows you to assert your ego a little bit, you know, be like, hey, this is what I think I'm worth, or really go after something that you've been thinking about and wanting to chase, and something that you want to sort of imbibe with feelings of power and influence. I think it would be a good day to put something out into the world, put your writing out into the world. Or again, just send somebody an email that's like, hey, I'm interested in this position. Do you have any openings? Like, it's kind of a day to be a little braver with what you're speaking and what you're articulating, because it involves Mars, it involves Pluto, but it involves these two planets in two air signs, and air signs are all about communication. So overall, it's an interesting transit. You want to pay attention to the area of your chart that is ruled by Gemini and Aquarius. Does anybody want to put their rising sign in the comments? I'm saying hello to Earl Sutton. Ooh, hello. Nice emojis there. If you want to put your rising signs or any questions you have about July, this is your opportunity to ask them. Hello, I am Cindy, not Crawford. Didn't confuse the two, but thanks for the clarification. If anybody has questions about this astrology, I've covered Mercury opposing Pluto, Venus opposite Pluto, the Mars-Uranus conjunction on July 15th. I've talked about Mars entering Gemini, Capricorn full moon, Cancer new moon, and Mars trining Pluto, Mercury squaring Uranus. There's a lot going on this month. Mercury enters its shadow period, and I don't think it's a terrible month for anybody. I don't think of astrology that way. I think it is very much more impactful for fixed signs. Mutable signs, you're also going to feel some of the weight of July's astrology. In a positive way, I think it's more just like it's going to be activity. Like there's going to be things happening at work, things happening in your relationships where it just feels like there's a flurry of to-dos and there's a flurry of things going on. And there's a lot of conversations that we're going to be starting. I don't think we're going to be finishing a whole lot because Mars and Gemini, we're going to have this drive to pursue a lot of things, kind of pursue whatever feels exciting and curious in the moment. And then following through on that, I don't know if that's the point, right? Like, I don't think that's the point with Mars and Gemini or any of this Jupiter and Gemini stuff. We have some interesting stuff happening between Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn in August too. So if you're a Gemini or a Pisces, I would suggest using July's astrology to get things in order, to see what you can do to sort of like lessen your plate. Like, try not to give yourself heaping amounts of extra work. I mean, I'm a Gemini and I already find myself doing that. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed and it isn't even July yet. It's still June. So if you're in that boat, maybe we can both work together to just sort of like calm things down, because things do get tense. Things do get kind of confusing and maybe a little stressful in August, but July, I really love the new moon. And so I really want anybody, if you're a cardinal sign or not, to use that Cancer new moon. For me, I'm going to be hopefully launching my Kickstarter for my novel on that new moon, and I'll have a link for that if you're interested in supporting that. But it's a great new moon to put something out into the world. It's a great new moon to set intentions. It's a great new moon to... Oh, okay, we have a question. Hello. Virgo rising, natal Neptune 5th house, and Saturn 4th, both retrograde. Okay. So Virgo rising, you're going to have those Saturn and Neptune retrogrades in your 7th house. It's your partnerships, right? And I don't know if you're in a partnership. I don't know if you're in a relationship or not. But retrogrades, particularly Saturn retrograde in the 7th house, you're reviewing the commitments that you're making with other people. You're looking at the foundation of your relationships. You're looking at maybe any shared dreams that you two have together, because this is Pisces we're talking about. With Neptune, you're trying to defog this area of your life. So as much as you want to commit to something, maybe you want to commit to another person, there might be something that still feels a little unclear. Maybe you haven't been completely honest about something, or they haven't been completely honest about you. And this could be in your romantic relationships or in your business or at work. Maybe you know, there's like an employee that you're like, oh, this person, they always feel like they're lying to me. Again, I don't know how that plays out for you. You're single. Okay. So, I mean, then if you're interested in a partnership, like you're interested in dating, there's no reason why you wouldn't do that. I don't think retrogrades are ever a time to be like, don't live your life, especially with Saturn and Neptune retrograde. It's like they're happening all the time. But I think it's a good time for you to get clear about what it is that you want out of a relationship, out of a one-on-one connection, out of a time or a, pairing, a partnership. What does a partnership really look like to you? How can you commit to that ideal without putting too much pressure on yourself, without being like, oh, I'm gonna, go on dating apps and do all these things that I don't really advocate. But if you're not interested in dating, if you're more interested in work, then I would just pay attention to your relationships with your boss, with your employees, with maybe clientele. Maybe you're in HR or something and you're working with people one-on-one. How is it that maybe you're giving more of your energy away to them? How is it that you're allowing them to kind of overstep your boundaries? Because it's another thing with both of these transits, these retrograde transits, Saturn and Neptune. In Pisces, boundaries are so porous, and so it's like, what are you allowing to slip through the cracks that maybe you need to put some Gorilla Glue on? What's cracked in those foundations that you need to be like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is just too much for me. I'm giving too much of my emotional energy to this person or to this thing. Scorpio, what's your rising sign, Soleil? Hello, Brenner. If you want to drop your sun or rising sign in the... You're welcome. I am Cindy, not Crawford. I love that name. If you want to drop your sun or rising sign in the comments, I'm kind of doing like mini readings for anybody. Rising sign is Virgo. Okay, so same thing kind of applies to you, Soleil. If you are in a relationship, it's a time to kind of relook at the foundation, at the shared ideals. Where is it that you're giving too much of your emotional energy to? Where is it that maybe you're not giving enough, right? Sometimes we can be the ones who are like, I've got the wall up and I'm not letting you in here. At work, you might just want to get really clear about expectations, about any sort of authority figure that you're working with who is maybe, I don't know, not respecting your boundaries or not honoring their side of the bargain, right? Because Saturn is the planet of so many things. It's a planet of our ambition. It's a planet of our oaths, so that the commitments that we make, both to ourselves and to others. In this instance, it's about the commitments that you've made and that people have made to you. So commitments you've made with others. That's why, the seventh house, when Saturn goes through the seventh house, they will often say that you might get married because marriage is like an oath. I don't know if that's the case for anybody here, if anyone has a Virgo rising with Saturn in their seventh house. You are in a relationship. Okay, so you think about, you know, moving forward with how you want to get serious with this person. If you want to get serious with this person, if you're already serious with this person, then looking at the one-on-one dynamic between you and them. Again, boundaries. How are you giving too much, not giving enough? How are they meeting those needs? How are you meeting their needs? And clarifying what's expected, or what, I don't know, you two have kind of agreed upon subconsciously in the relationship. You're welcome. You're very welcome. If anybody else wants to put their rising sign in the comments, I'm doing mini readings. Oh, it's 2:30. It's almost time for me to get off. So if you have a question about July's astrology, I have gone through July's astrology, and it's time's a ticking. I'm going to give us a few more minutes. So if you have any questions about anything that's going on, I've talked about Mercury and Venus in Leo. They're both opposing Pluto. Talked about Mars conjoining Uranus on July 15th. That's really, really big. I've talked about Mars and Gemini, Cancer new moon, Capricorn full moon, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Mercury enters its shadow. Okay, your rising is at 15 Sagittarius. You're a Sagittarius rising if you're at 15, I'm assuming degrees, 46 minutes Sagittarius. You're a Sagittarius. What is expected this month? Soleil, do you mean for Scorpio or Virgo rising? Because for Scorpio, there's a lot of stuff happening in these fixed signs. So as I mentioned, Mercury and Venus in Leo, Mars, Uranus conjunction in Taurus. And because you're a Virgo rising, these are happening in your 12th house and your, what? Where's Taurus in your chart? Let's see. Your 5th house? Maybe? And Capricorn. Is that your partner? Is your partner a Capricorn? Capricorn, I think the full moon in Capricorn is going to affect Capricorn the most, and the Cancer new moon. It's kind of a bit of a romantic new moon. I feel like the full moon is somewhat of a romantic full moon. I mean, people are going to give me shit about that because Capricorn's not like a super romantic sign. The moon doesn't particularly love being full in Capricorn. But with that sextile from Neptune, it's kind of dreamy. It's a day for like romanticizing the past and getting romantic with your partner. And, oh yeah, they are a Capricorn. So, thinking about like, do you know their rising sign, your partner, Soleil? So those moons are going to be important for cardinal signs. I think with Mercury and Venus in Leo, it takes, Aries. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's going to be really good. They're going to be really like playfully, I don't know if a Capricorn is ever that playful, but more romantic, more passionate, because they're going to have Mercury and Venus in their 5th house. And Venus loves being in the 5th house, especially during summer. So I think it's a good time for your relationship to do some fun stuff together, to go out and do like summer stuff, enjoy the heat. I mean, don't get stuck in the heat dome because, we don't want any of that. But, go to like pool parties and go to picnics and do things together that allow you to share the love. Because what I really like about Mercury and Venus in Leo, particularly for your Capricorn beau, but also for you, it's a time of like heightened passion, and it's a time for experiencing passion and enjoying the passionate connections that we have and being playful, right? Getting back to our like inner kid and feeling like, I love doing this thing because it brings me joy, and doing things that bring you joy, doing things that feel fun and playful and passionate. That's a great way to use a lot of July's astrology. So I will leave you all with that because it has been 35 minutes. So I've done my fun little... Oh, see, you have a pool party tomorrow. How cool. You're going to enjoy that. That's going to be so much fun. So if you have more, you want to learn more about July's astrology, I'm launching my July horoscopes on my Substack, cosmiccannibal.substack.com. They're really, really in-depth, so it's kind of like what I did here, but for each rising sign, you can see what's going on for the month and, you know, how to work with the astrology, what to expect, all that jazz. And if you want to dive further into your chart and see what is going on with the astrology for you, you can check out my readings at cosmiccannibal.com. But thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a great week. It's going to be an interesting one, right? We're having July and all the retrogrades and all that fun stuff. Bye for now.